Hello and welcome to this edition of Finance and Technology Insights. I'm Brian Williams.
I'm Eric Bjerndorf. What's going on?
Not much. We're recording here on a Sunday. Probably release this on Monday, so trying to mix it up a little bit. We've both been super busy coming in through the end of the year, so it's exciting to kind of catch up on the weekend here.
Yeah, it's Sunday, November 12th, and it's been a few weeks since we've connected. I'm afraid to say that it's mostly my fault, I think, but as usual, I appreciate the grace.
Yeah.
So, given our new format, we did our personal catch up offline, and it's good to see you, good to catch up and hear what's going on with you. You want to get right into what's going on in the news?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as we get more popular, we might have to record that as like a pre-show or something and have
right, for our Patreon subscribers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like I don't know if you know. Well, like Bill Maher, he does his show. I don't even remember what it's called anymore, but he does his HBO show, and then he has like overtime. I think he calls it or something. Yeah, and then he puts that was on CNN, and then it was off, and now it's back on, and he puts it on YouTube. But so we'll have to do an overtime in the pre-show at some point. So.
Yeah, for sure. So you want to start with this hack, or you want to start with OpenAI? I want to talk AI all day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's do that. So they had their development day this week. That was their first development day. One of the initial reactions that I saw is that it wasn't like super popular, even though they had announced it and people knew it was kind of like, if you compare that to some of the Apple development days and things like that, the number of people watching online. So that was one of the first metrics that they talked about, that it wasn't like super well attended. I think it got some decent media coverage, but nothing like, back in the day, the iPhone releases or the iPad release or anything like that. But
this
they did a few
it's probably an example of people wanting to eat the sausage but not caring at all, or wanting to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there was anything that was like a must see. I mean, at least with Apple, it was a product. It was a shiny, whereas this is it's not.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with Apple's keynotes, the things that they're showing are the personal items that you'll be possessing, right? So that's why you'd get 100 million viewers or 50 million viewers at the Apple keynotes. But I mean, watching the OpenAI day is probably. It's amazing because what are they getting? Like 100 million. They had 100 million signups, or so they beat OpenAI, ChatGPT blew like crazy records for early adoption pickup. But again, like talking about even me and you and I text and you tell me like you're getting into it, you're rolling your sleeves up into it.
Yeah.
Even I'm not doing that. Like I'm playing with the publicly available interface and things. As a technologist, the OpenAI details that we're going to talk about, I have a lot to say about it, but it's still kind of like how the sausage is made a little bit,
Right. Yeah, it's still a little inside baseball kind of thing. If my 8-year-old mother had turned on an Apple event back in the day, she'd be like, "Oh wow, look at that phone! That looks pretty cool." But if somebody like that turns on a OpenAI development day, we're not really going to get much out of it. Even their big kind of wow, like aha presentations were still kind of technical.
The pundits out there that I was listening to responded positively in saying that it was an example of a developer day getting back to what they used to be in the sense that it wasn't overly produced. It wasn't overly shiny and Apple-like in its production quality. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, just came out real awkward. Like obviously he had some talking notes that he was following, but clearly was not overly polished and prepared in his delivery.
No, not like the Cybertruck when they talked about how you couldn't break the window and then they smashed the window. That's
that was
the all-time
that was
classic
funny.
ones, right?
So do you have anything that open that you can share that kind of highlights the rundown?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really don't. We can kind of talk about it a little bit. I was gonna show you some of the stuff I was developing, but it's really not that it's like super confidential or whatever. But I think the big deal here is for people that have used the plugins, that was always kind of clunky, and you had to kind of select what you were doing. Even though they didn't officially retire those, it's pretty clear that they're kind of moving away from that model. So if you haven't used the plugins, what would happen is you would go into the chat interface, and then if you were like planning a trip, you would go in and go through the plugins, and then you'd have to like basically install it for yourself as a user, and then you had to check the box for, let's say, Travelocity or whatever, and then that would be the plugin that you were using, and then it would be able to get some real-time data and connect to Travelocity. Or if you were trying to use a DALL-E image, you would have to check off that that's what you were trying to do, so it would know. And now what they're doing is these companies will basically, they're calling them GPTs, but they'll have apps where you can, where you'll be able to like click on a specific thing. So like an example, like basically going back to the iPhone example. So you might get up in the morning and you might go to the NBA GPT app within your Chat GPT interface, and you might be like, all right, who are the top 10 scorers last night in basketball, or how did the Knicks do? Are they on a winning streak or something like that? And it will chat back to you in the interface, rather than right now you might go to your NBA app or your ESPN app or something like that. So, and then the ability to have those kind of apps either be internal business use case type of things, where it's almost functions a little bit more like a CRM, where you might be quizzing it on maybe the client data or their contractual information, like, oh, how many times do I have to service ABC company in a quarter? Do I go out there once a quarter, or is it semi-annually? Or, is it any of my clients' birthdays today? Do I need to, do something like that? So some of those queries that you might do to a CRM, you can kind of do in natural language if you train your own model. And then you could also make a public-facing part of that, where maybe you remove the client data. So let's say you are, in the investment business, and you put a client-side facing that, where they can say, all right, I work at ABC company, what is the eligibility? And then it might come back and say, okay, your eligibility is you got to be age 21 and you have to work for the company for 6 months. So, and that could be something that's public within the GPT app there.
So I thought that one of the most exciting things that I saw was they announced basically they're launching an app store. Mm-hmm. And the app store, the concept of the app store has basically defined our computing revolution over the last 15 years. I remember in the 90s, to be honest with you, I remember in the 90s thinking like, man, it would just be nice if there was like a place to get the apps on Windows. Mm-hmm. And then in 2007 the iPhone launched, and then I think the iPhone didn't launch with the App Store. That came later. And then when that launched, that's when the usefulness of that tool came. And so now OpenAI was this, it's this amazing technology that lets you, talk to it in real language. And what what clearly OpenAI wants to do is become and I'm gonna call it right here that AI is the next operating system paradigm. Right. It's going to be, and I think Bill Gates just had an interview yesterday or a couple days ago, and he said basically the same thing. So it's, I didn't coin that, but I don't hear a lot of people kind of speaking like that AI is going to be the next operating system. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the use case. So if you think of just kind of your business day, you got your 2 or 3 monitors, and maybe one's your browser, and then one is your chat window, your assistant, whether you're a sole proprietor, whether you got 1,000 employees, and then that just becomes the thing you used to yell down the hallway, or you used to, it just becomes that window. So I was texting you some of the examples that I use, like the eligibility thing, or if you're, in the 401k business, you're loading plan documents or something. So somebody calls me and they have a question about eligibility or a certain fund or whatever, that's, whereas I might pull up that document, or I might be pulling it from a CRM. But yeah, instead of having your CRM open, your research or whatever, all that's going to run through this type of thing. So
yeah,
I definitely think that's the new. Whereas you would log on and go to Windows and pull up different things. Now you're logging on, you're going to ChatGPT, and maybe you have a couple different, chat things open. But that's definitely the.
Well, what I think is going to happen is I think AI is going to be embedded in every interfaceable device that we have as the operating system, and right, it may be like the Windows will be Windows, but don't forget, do you remember when they had Cortana integrated into Windows?
Yeah.
That they tried to integrate the smart assistant we call them smart assistants now. Your Echo devices, your Google Home devices, Siri, all of the other third parties, Cortana, Microsoft brought into Cortana, but it just wasn't there yet. And what it was waiting for was this LLM, this large language model, or AI now that we call it, technology. And what I think is going to happen is every device maker already has the smart assistant, but they're just going to like turn it on. They're going to now it's going to be like, that AI LLM backend, and every device you turn on, you're going to now just imagine you hit the power button on your laptop and you just say, all right, pull up my CRM, what's going, and you're just having real language speech with this thing, and it's talking back to you, and it's moving the applications on your screen. So pull up my CRM, what are my latest leads, what are the last 10 leads doing from this week, and it's going to pull up those records. It's going to give you, show me, some dashboard or widget, metric, whatever metric, what are the top performing accounts last week in sales, what are the slowest, SLA responses, that sort of thing. And then your personal device is going to have this, following you. So again, instead of like picking up the phone, you can't see it, but I've got this cradle that holds my phone next to my laptop, and instead you'll just be like, pull up XYZ app, you know what I mean, and tell me this thing that I want to see, and it'll pull up, it'll know what app to pull up, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. So all of that what's the term, syntax, all that syntax to get what you want, I think is going to go away.
Right. You're gonna know what you. There'll be a little bit of a learning curve there, I guess you would call it. Like if I want directions right now, it's like, okay, Google, drive me to Bradley, and it'll pull up. It will pull up them. Ooh, it actually did it. But so that's what it's. So now it would be like, okay, Google, open up ChatGPT and go to my business app and tell me whose birthday it is today. That's what it's going to bring me back.
I think they're skipping that step though. That's my point. I mean, yes, you still have to pull up the AI, the bespoke AI, but once Siri gets it integrated, Siri's going to plug into the AI. The AI is going to be plugged into all of your apps. Sorry, my screens do these new things. The AI on my computer can see when I make gestures. Nice. It's going to know what your apps are. The credentials are already going to be logged into the apps. So then it's going to, it's that smart. It's going to be able to tell you like what, or you're going to be able to tell it in real speak what to do,
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out all the monetization and how these companies make it work. That was so from the development standpoint. OpenAI did mention that they are going to, if you build a killer app for their platform, you're going to be able to make money off that. I don't know what that looks like, to the final end user thing, like you mentioned. I don't know who pay. I guess you're paying your monthly subscription to OpenAI, and then from that, 2 pennies go to this app that you use, and 5 pennies go to this one that you use more, and $10 goes to OpenAI. I don't know. They didn't really get into that too much. They didn't even talk about really when that's going to come out. I did ask somebody, one of the guys on YouTube who does a lot of videos, and they said within the month, but he gave me like December 10th or something like that as a.
I mean, as far as the monetary vehicle, I mean, our audience doesn't care about that. That's more sausage making, right?
Yeah.
They, our audience here is there's going to be there's a developer interface here that's they literally say is dead simple. You're building software just by talking to the computer.
Right.
This morning before you and I connected, you know what Zapier is, right?
Yeah.
I have a customer survey tool that when the survey comes back, it comes back in the form of an email, and I want to update the CRM record when somebody responds to a survey. Mm-hmm. So I went to Zapier. I don't know is this going to open up. So I went to Zapier this morning, and look what they have now on their homepage.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah. And then the Zapier integration goes back to one of the things, if you go back to that other tab on the developer tab, down in actions and stuff, you can plug in API references and stuff like that under the configure tab. So that was one of the demos that I was working on over the week, just kind of one of these learning exercises was to create a chat window that creates your email. So let's say you are working on your regular chat stuff. And then you just say, the exercise was, I'm not feeling well today. Send an email to my boss that says that I'm sick. So from the chat window, it connects to Zapier, and then which is connected to your email, and then it just sends the email right through there. So it's not, you're not going to your email interface, you're not going to anything else. It's just right there in the chat.
Right. Exciting stuff.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. I think one of the things we talked about early when this stuff came out, it's like, what's the timing for people who are really into this kind of stuff? You don't want to be too early. You don't want to be too late. I mean, there's tons of people that spend a lot of time and money creating things that OpenAI just created like for free and just threw out there. So those people kind of get hurt.
Let me mention this. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's like the analogy they keep giving is like the Apple, like the flashlight app, right? Like people put out all those flashlight apps, and people bought them and used them, and then eventually the latest OS came out and it just had flashlight built in.
True. So what's one thing that's really exciting to me is OpenAI is part of this development platform and this app store. Is they're saying, listen, you can import your own data and have the AI use the context of that data that you're importing, but we will not train the AI on your data. So that's a major concern out there that right now the copyright holders and the content makers out there are struggling with that because they're saying like, hey, your AI exists with the embedded talent of our product, our work product. So there's this real concern of having your content or your information training the AI. But let's just put that argument aside for a second and say, okay, the AI has some sort of general intelligence to it. So now what you can do, and OpenAI is saying you can build an app where you have this wall and you can say to AI within the sandbox, here's our data, and train on our data internally, and then as we use you, AI, take your general AI knowledge that you come to us with, and then let me interact with my own data securely, privately. And I think that's what Microsoft's coming out with the Copilot feature, And I think that is going to be a big piece of, AI coming to our cell phones, AI coming to our laptops, and then corporate AI is kind of something that I'm excited about, because if we can, if all of our apps have AI, and I can just have real speak about the data that's already in the database hosted with the vendor that I'm at, and again, knowing that that data is not breaching the training wall, but it's just staying on the side, on my side of the privacy profile. That to me is really exciting. What do you think about that?
Yeah. And if all that's connected through a back-end API and you're not constantly uploading new documents for it to, then that's
also true, right? Yeah, you don't want to keep manually refreshing. So obviously, there's the AI plugin have to have a continual connection or stream to your content.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what, if you think of, as you were talking, I was trying to think of, just like an author or something like you take like Walter Isaacson or somebody like that who's written all those great biographies. Like that would be, whereas he might not want those in the general open AI, because he's like, well, I worked my whole life, writing these biographies. He might just take all those, upload those to like a custom app or something, and then if you want to chat with all of those people that he's written biographies on, you would go to his app. And then there's a potential way for him to kind of monetize that, and you could ask him questions about Thomas Jefferson or Elon Musk or whatever.
How about this move right here? So one of my roles at my company is just answering questions to business processes that my staff could otherwise figure out on their own, if because we have a really robust culture of documenting processes and things, and it's all in our business management software. If I had a Eric agent that could represent me, that could read my email, could read my and could read our knowledge base, and could read maybe my files or whatever, and if one of my staff say like, hey, how do we issue a credit on this account or something, you know what I mean? Something to that effect. And it's like a well-documented process. Maybe they can ask my agent, my AI agent, that is me, it is my ethos, or is my work, body of work, but like I'm not even the one answering that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's a body of work without your body.
Yeah. I mean, if it's going to produce the same output, like why, that would be an amazing use case for that.
Yeah, I think we talked about that on one of the episodes way back. You always, like in the big corporate world, there's always that like one old guy that's hanging around that like knows everything about everything, and everybody hates him and everybody wants to fire him and get rid of him, but he knows where all the bodies are buried, and he knows so much. But then it's like, all right, well, we know we've got all these, we've got 25 years worth of emails from this guy. Everything that he knows that he regurgitates to us on a regular basis, he's already disseminated out to the staff at one point. We can take all
usually
his emails.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, exactly. We can take all his emails, all his notes. We can recreate him and kick him out the door because we don't like his personality, but we can keep his knowledge because he's already given that out. So, and that was one of the concerns of thinking it from a creative standpoint. I mean, think about people who've got so many hours of content out there, like Rogan or Howard Stern or somebody like that. You could predict, you could have him interview somebody fresh, but based on all his knowledge, you could have an AI interview him, and all the words that he's spoken. I mean, it would sound exactly like him.
So I've been thinking about that. What would happen if the AI knows me so well that I'm no longer needed for the current so the fear or thought or concern is like, wow, like I'm no longer needed to the organization in real because the last 20 years of my body of work is all indexed and trained on the corporate AI. But then if you think about it, and this applies to artists too, is the AI can create new stuff that we haven't seen before. But it's almost like What's the analogy that you want to, or the depiction that you want to create for me? Because it's like, to me, like the snake eating the tail, or drinking your own urine because you're thirsty. It's like a toxic cycle that doesn't introduce new nutrients.
Right.
It seems to me, you know what I mean? Like, so like without the creator, without the human creator, like the AI seems like, I bet you, like after some inflection metric, it becomes a closed loop of content that doesn't have new nutrients to it. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Yeah. It depends on what the new ingredient to the. I mean, there's so many different scenarios you can run through, but let's say Howard Stern passes away tomorrow, okay?
Right.
And then 6 months from now, there's a new 20-year-old movie star, and they want Howard Stern to interview. So the new ingredient to that formula obviously is a 20-year-old movie star, but you're using all of his interviews for the last 40 years. You're using all that context to generate questions and responses and the interaction. So
it would be good enough, probably, right, for a number of years, and maybe even like maybe a lifetime or several generations. It might be good enough. But don't forget, even Howard Stern himself. I mean, we all watched him at some point in the '90s, maybe in the '80s. That was the last time I think I've ever interacted with his content, because he never came to YouTube, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. But I do know that just through his efforts, through like America's Got Talent or whatever the show that he was on for as a judge for a while, and I just saw him through various other news outlets being reported or being interviewed and stuff. He has evolved himself.
Right.
So he is not a finite thing too, and that's what the human spirit is that it is evolving. It is that is what makes us human, is that we are not static. Like, even if you were to take everything I was to date, you have no idea what I'm going to be tomorrow or the next year or for the next 10 years. Same as goes for you, and same goes for every artist out there. Evolution of art is, and I speak without any expertise, so to speak, in art, but just as somebody who's created a massive body of work over the last 20-year career, I've evolved also. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like the company might be able to say, like, we've got enough of Eric that we can let him go and we can benefit. Mm-hmm. But the company, I mean, eventually would just, I think, run out of what that new nutrient would be from me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just like the worker that's 50 years old, they eventually run their course. Forget AI, just in general. You become less useful over time. The knowledge base that you have doesn't really pertain to the new environment that you're in, or new technology or whatever, and eventually it's that kind of phases out. But it goes back to like
I think you went a different way than I was thinking on that. I'm saying, like, if at 50 years with the company goes like, okay, we've got all your emails, we've got all your work product, we've trained our company AI with that, we think we can let you go, but like, that means that might work for the company for a while, but like you would have continued to inject, and you have over that 50 years contributed and injected new nutrient into that body of work. It's like if they let you go after 20 years with the company, they would have foregone the value of your contribution for the next 30 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, it might have been. No, I think we're saying the same thing. So let's say you take that 50-year-old employee, and forget AI for a second. You have that 50-year-old employee. That employee is probably going to be less effective from 50 to 70 than he was from 30 to 50, let's say. And from 50 to 70, he or she has declining value to the company. And that basically would be the same thing as if you fired that employee at 50, took that knowledge base would have declining value over the next 20 years. Same way as you had the person. So it's kind of like a parallel kind of track. And some of this goes back to like prompt engineering, or the way you would orchestrate your bot or whatever, you could say like, let's go and keep going with the Howard Stern example, say, interview this new person, but emphasize his style from the 2020s at 50%, his style from 2010s at 30%, and you would kind of emphasize his more recent stuff, or in the tone of, if Howard Stern was alive today, what would he sound like, and use I don't know, somebody else as an example. Use Seth Meyers as an example of if he were alive today, and emphasize his most recent work at 20. You could really dial into how you wanted to create that, AI person. Or you could say disregard anything before 2005 from Howard Stern because that was, not appropriate for today's world or something like that. But really interesting stuff, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is. I didn't catch the Bill Gates interview, but I saw a news article reporting on the interview, and he coins the term agents. We're going to have AI agents, and I think he's right on that. Of course, I don't think he's a genius. He's just responding to, I think, what's presently evolving. But it's exciting to see how fast this comes. I mean, as I've said so many times, I've got a smart speaker in every room in the house. I cannot wait for that to just light up with OpenAI.
Yeah. Nope. It's definitely here. I think if you wanted to go like to that, we talked before about being too early or too late. I mean, you could probably make it do. You could spend a week and get everything to do exactly what you want it to do, or you could just wait a couple months and it'll do.
I'm going to wait a couple months. I'm a technologist, but I'm a old gray technologist. This stuff is. I have no interest in working that hard on this stuff anymore. Not working hard on it. I don't like to hack things around anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's moving so fast, and you got to kind of let those people do what they're supposed to do, and then jump in when you're like, okay, now it's ready. Now it's
right.
Like you did with your lawnmower. It's been around a while, but I'm going to wait until it's exactly.
Yeah, I was a little early on the lawnmower. But I didn't want to mow my lawn anymore.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about leaves. How does it do with leaf pickup and leaf chopping? And
doesn't do. So I stopped taking the leaves off the lawn a few years ago when I got the tractor. So I just mulched the leaves into the lawn, and I think that is good for both me and the lawn, and it's worked great. The robot does not mulch. So it interestingly does drive over the leaves and keep the lawn short. Although I think this last week, the lawn just stopped growing because of the cold temperatures. But no, it doesn't mulch leaves. So I had to pull the tractor out and mulch the leaves. And aggravatingly, the gas-powered tractor that hasn't been started all year because I have a robot lawnmower wouldn't start. So I had to clean the fuel lines, change the fuel filter, clean the carburetor, and do that whole what I call steampunk maintenance on this machine to get it started again.
I know, it feels like you're going back in time, like cranking the car or something in 1910.
That's literally how I view internal combustion machines now. It just feels so like, overall suspenders with that like baller's hat and like a stogie and like grease on your face, and you're just like, to me there's just nothing modern at all to an internal combustion. What do they say? Suck, squeeze, bang, blow is how they refer to internal combustion.
Yeah. Does your town pick up the leaves? Do they come around and suck them up or not?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. But even that's more work than just mulch.
I know. Yeah, I 100% agree. So, and we have if we wanted to blow them, we could go into the woods. But I just waited till everything kind of laid down. I mowed yesterday because I had the time, but. Yeah, even my little battery-powered push mower just chops them right up and leaves them there. It's good for the lawn anyway. But yeah, I did have that on my list of things to ask you about how your little guy handled the leaves.
I'm overwhelmingly enthusiastic about this robot mower. I'm so glad that it was. it doesn't have the LiDAR, it doesn't have camera, it doesn't have AI vision on it. So it's really just it's kind of like a, basic mapping and bumping around. It doesn't have that like high resolution visibility. It's using a high resolution GPS mapping and has some, I think, radar on it. So it does see some basic objects in front of it, but it doesn't know what it's seeing, So it's very obvious that over the next 2 years, 3 years, these things are going to, I've talked about this ad nauseum, but my vacuum and mop has eyes and ears and sees everything, and it tells me when a shoe is in the way. So the mower is obviously going to come down with that, but
yeah. I had another tab I want to share here, switching gears. I thought this was kind of interesting. So the headline here for people listening is, this is from CNBC. So growing geopolitical conflicts have some investors feeling guilty about buying defense stocks. So this sort of plays into, we've touched on this a few times before, like the ESG thing, the environmental and socially conscious investing, and that certainly gets a lot of press. But this one's a little bit different in that it shows a chart of the ETF, which is ticker symbol ITA, the iShares US Aerospace and Defense ETF. That is it's showing up about 7.5% since the beginning of October, and since right around the Hamas attacks on Israel, whereas the overall market is up about 3% in that same time frame. So a little bit outperformance there by aerospace and defense stocks. So I'll ask you, if you were a holder of that, would you feel guilty at all, or what are your thoughts on investing in aerospace and defense, especially in war times?
No, I don't feel guilty. I wouldn't feel guilty in that sense. But oh man, you're trying to get me canceled with this one, huh?
No. I'll talk about it too. I mean, it is aerospace in defense, so you could take the other complete opposite position, be like, yeah, I'm investing to help defend people against the bad guy. There's nothing wrong with that position at all.
I mean,
I would feel almost more guilty about investing in something that there is no upside to, investing in, going back to ESG, people that are concerned about oil investing, or even McDonald's or something like that. I would almost think there'd be more guilt coming from that than something that could be considered a defense stock.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that oil companies exist because investors invest in them. Oil companies exist because consumers consume the product. So, the defense companies don't exist because there are two cultures at war with each other. They exist because they're selling products that two cultures want to kill each other with. I don't want to say the cynical, like it's going to happen whether you invest in it or not. And I certainly don't think that the defense contractors or the defense companies started these wars. And I know that there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there and theorists out there that would love to say that, but I don't care how clever you are. I just don't think that the what do they call it? The
military industrial complex.
The military industrial complex, and there may be, in fact, very likely is some individuals and people and policies that are participating in that economy. But you just have two cultures that are just at odds with each other, and for the reasons that they are. And if you look at, Russia and Ukraine, I mean, did the industrial military complex induce Vladimir Putin to unilaterally just invade a sovereign country and to call his own? I mean, did China have you ever seen China's methodology for mapping out their claim to the South China Sea? Have you ever seen that?
No, I don't think
It's
so.
it's completely egregious. They completely just say like, oh, all of this space we're claiming as ours, but you look at like the Philippines and Vietnam, and you're like, no, by international standards, like almost all of that is not yours, you know. But they just write this little like, claim to this, and then they wrap around Taiwan, and like, is the industrial military complex inducing China to do that? I don't think it is. So if the Philippines and Vietnam want to to defend themselves with force against a belligerent invader, like, should you not take an ownership claim in a corporation that's going to produce the tools of this conflict, because you just know you're a likely correct speculator? I mean, I think it's just a little pie in the sky to think that, like, if you don't contribute to the war machine through an investment holdership, right? You're holding ownership of this company. So when this company does what this company is going to do, you're going to financially benefit from the sale of their goods and services. So that's my position on that.
So you wouldn't have any guilt off profiting off a company that made weapons for any military?
No, but I can compartmentalize and say, like, I'm really sad for these two cultures that are killing each other en masse.
Mm-hmm.
I wish you guys wouldn't do that. I wish you guys. I wish I could make money on my investment on the sale of missiles and rockets, and have them securely parked in their launchers, pointing at each other, so you guys have mutually assured destruction. But nobody pulled the triggers. You know what I mean? And then when those rockets need maintenance, you pull them out, you maintain them, you put them back in. There's a sale of revenue there that I hope, like, my investment would benefit from. But, like, I don't want anybody to pull the trigger.
Right. And you want to invest in the data security that prevents those missiles from being hacked and launched by a bad guy.
Right. I mean, there's so much hope and false hope and in the world right now that, like, somehow conflict can be eradicated, or there's at some point in the universe, in the human timeline, that will achieve some higher brain that, like, the species will start getting along. Like, I don't know who wrote that thesis, but I can't get through a week without aggravating my wife to the point where we're in some sort of conflict at some level. Mm-hmm. And watching my two daughters, they're not simpatico, you know what I mean, and we are under the same roof. I mean, it's like, show me two people and I'll show you two people at odds with each other. You know what I mean? Right. So, like, who is under the fantasy that cultures would do the same, would be in perfect alignment, and there wouldn't be a conflict of I think we should go right, and the other group says I think we should go left, and it's like, when there's life and food involved, like, sometimes there's going to be conflict.
Yeah. I think their idea is usually that life will be so good and we'll be in such a position of abundance that those issues won't come up. People won't fight over.
I look at the stuff that me and my wife fight about, and I'm like, we live in abundance.
Right. I know.
So when you achieve abundance claim, that's when arguing will stop. Is just false. I mean, abundance doesn't cause any problems. Yeah, because then it's like, which beach are we going to go to?
Right. Yeah.
Where are we going to on vacation? Well, I'm not going to talk to you for a weekend because you want to go to the Bahamas and I want to go to Puerto Rico. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's like I was talking to a buddy of mine last night, and he does like high-end like entertainment for whole house systems and that kind of stuff, but for like athletes and like hedge fund and like really the upper 1% of the 1%. And he's like, if I ever do come in contact with those people, they're just as miserable as everybody else. They've got their own problems. They've got their own conflicts. It's like no matter, like the first billion didn't make them happy, but the second billion will. That kind of mindset. It's not like it goes away over different positions of abundance.
Yeah, exactly. People just have to learn how to adult kindly when there's a disagreement, and take it like an adult when it doesn't go your way. When the cards don't fall your way, you just gotta keep on keeping on.
Yeah. It will say, if, like, from a natural resources standpoint, if we do get to a position where, it's energy in abundance, and that creates, clean water in abundance, that does remove a little bit of conflict. The endless wars over oil go away if we don't need oil, obviously.
Yeah, but you just contradicted yourself. I mean, it's just the thing that you fight about changes.
Yeah.
It really is that.
Yeah, but I don't. We'll see what there'd be something different. But
I mean, you and your wife aren't fighting over clean water, right? But like, you have disagreements, right?
Yeah.
So that's my point. That's my point.
Yeah. But they might be more severe if there was only one.
You and your wife aren't killing each other about which vacation, where to vacation. So maybe that's your point.
Yeah, that is my point. Is that when it's not life or death, maybe it does become less severe.
Okay,
and it is
sure.
still, we forget how much different parts of the world it is life or death for water or certain resources.
But Vladimir Putin isn't starving or cold at night, and really Ukraine at large isn't either. But now it's like, hey, I just want to assert myself. I mean, it's just people asserting themselves. I mean, it's just So, I mean, tie this in finance and tech. It's like these companies that service this industry. I don't feel guilty for it. I'm sad. I'm able to compartmentalize. I'm going to do a prudent investment over here because I see this supply and demand paradigm. But I really wish you guys weren't doing this.
And from a finance and technology standpoint, we do want people to be aggressive and competitive, because that's how things get made. I mean, you look at Elon Musk and his AI. I mean, they're talking about how they built that first version in like 90 days.
Absolutely.
So you want that, you don't want him to go and shoot Sam Altman or something like that, but you like that competitive spirit. And,
I don't want Elon Musk to not make the next $1 trillion on his AI because I want Sam Altman to stay employed. You know what I mean?
Right.
No, like go after each other's merit-based jugulars, and let our species elevate as it has continued to do over the last 300, 500 years.
Right. You don't want to settle on, Microsoft has figured out, Office apps, so let's not challenge them, or Google's figured out search. So everybody's fat and happy, so let's not do anything different, because that's when innovation stops.
Yeah, exactly. That would be the total nightmare for our culture, I think.
All right. A good place. You want to wrap it up, or did you want
I think that's good. I'm glad we got it in. Let's just do a little bit of housekeeping. So we're Finance and Technology Insights. We do have a Facebook group that we sometimes pin news articles that we're going to talk about. We have a YouTube channel, same thing, where this content will be posted. Brian is kind enough to get us posted on your favorite podcast and video cast app. So we're there. We were recording Tuesdays mornings for the last year or so, but we're going to pivot to record on the weekends. Hopefully we'll continue to do that. And I think that's all I got.
That sounds good. We'll see you next week.
All right, see you next week.